Welcome to Gatorsports.com. I'm Pat Dooley, sports columnist of the Gainesville Sun, and today my bracket buddies and I are going to look at the bracket in the NCAA tournament. You know Mark Wise from the Gator Radio Network. Mark, great to have you here.
Thanks, Pat.
You know Kevin Brockway from the Gainesville Sun.
Thank you, Pat.
And you know Larry Vettel from WRUF and a multitude of organizations.
Only work for companies with a checkbook.
That's right. That's a good deal. All right, we're going to look at different things. Florida's bracket, the SEC teams, and who will be in the Final Four today. We're going to do this in 3 segments, so you have to click on all 3 to watch all 3 of the videos. We'll start out with the first question. We look at Florida's seed in the bracket, and we were talking about this off the air, guys. You know, I'm looking at Florida's bracket. I'm like, I don't like anybody there. Mark, I mean, what do you think of the draw that they got?
Well, I think they benefited. I didn't have them on the 2 line, but I think there's justification. I mean, when you look at the criteria, what the committee says, who did you play, who did you beat, where did you beat them? Florida is 17-4 against the top 100, and those road wins at Xavier, at Florida State, those are bonus extra credit points. I think there's justification.
Yeah, Kentucky fans aren't happy, but I'm convinced, Larry, that the committee didn't care who won that game. That it had no bearing. If you saw Gene Smith earlier in the day, it looked like he didn't care who won that game.
There are a bunch of games they don't care who won, apparently, including most of the ones that Georgia and Alabama played against each other. But, you know, you look at it, Florida's probably number 8 in the committee's eye, and Kentucky's probably 13. That's a bigger gap than I would think. I think Kentucky's 4 is more surprising to me than Florida getting a 2. But either way, you got to go play. And as we found out, being a 2 in Tampa has not exactly been a gift for the Florida Gators.
No. And you also have to remember, head-to-head comes later down the road when everything else is equal, which it was not.
Yeah, and the thing, I think Florida was 8-1 or 8-2 in road games or neutral site games, not counting that last game, because I don't think they counted it. Kevin, they obviously start off with Cal Santa Barbara. As a team that's got to come all the way across the country. You would think that would be an advantage as well.
Yeah, they do have one big guard, Orlando Johnson, who's 6'5", who could create some matchup problems. They have a few bigger guards, and then obviously, you know, you're talking about Kenny Boyd and Irving Walker, 6'1" and 6'2". So talk to them a little bit about that yesterday. They're going to get in their face. They're going to try and pressure. And then, you know, the second potential second-round matchup, Michigan State, obviously, and UCLA. You're talking about 3 coaches in that pod that have combined for 11 Final Fours. So Ben Howland with 3, Tom Izzo with 5, and Billy Donovan with 3. That's a pretty good bracket in terms of coaching. It
amazes me that we sit here and you see Florida's bracket come up, and they've got in the second game, if they get to the second game, they're going to play UCLA, which they have a history with, or Michigan State, which they have a history with. And if they win those games, they could be playing BYU, which they lost to last year. I mean, it's just almost like it sets up, hey, let's do it again. We liked it the first time. But, you know, there's no question about it. I think Florida's got a favorable bracket. Still got to go play, Larry.
No question. It's great to have a draw that you're comfortable with. I think Florida a little bit is going to be rooting for UCLA because it's not a matter personnel-wise. I don't think it's a big deal. But Tom Izzo's special. I just think he's really a special coach this time of year. And they're going to get rough and tumble, and Florida doesn't always respond well to rough and tumble. So while it's a nice draw, if Michigan State advances, they better, you know, be ready to man up on day 2.
Right.
I think the one factor that they have off the bench this year, though, is Patrick Young, you know, big 6'8", 235, 240-pound guy that can kind of, you know, bang in the boards a little bit, maybe that they didn't have last year in terms of the physicality.
You also have to remember first-round upsets have 2 things in common. One is usually older players. Santa Barbara has that. A 3-point presence. Santa Barbara has that. I'm telling you, this is not just a walk in the park 2-15 game.
Well, and they also, they're kind of like a lot of teams Florida's played this year. They got 2 guys that can score. And Florida's run into that a lot this season. And if they can neutralize one of them, it usually works out well for them. It's funny with that Michigan State game. I was in Billy's office about 3 weeks after the game, and he goes, Jules, let me ask you something. He says, before the game, you guys all wrote that Michigan State was going to be too physical. Then they were too physical, and now I'm a bad coach. I don't get it. And I'm like, yeah, it's probably a pretty good point.
Well, he should know by now that if he does what we say, then he messes up.
But remember, Michigan State can't score.
No, they
They've
can't.
lost 14 games for a reason. But at the end of the day, you really don't want to play Tom Izzo.
No, you don't because of his history. Let's go to topic 2. Which #1 seed won't make it to the Final Four? I've penciled in Duke. But again, I will say this. I didn't like Kentucky at the SEC tournament because here's a team that shoots well at home. right? They go on the road, they struggle. Unfamiliar rims, unfamiliar backgrounds. And guess what happened? They won the whole thing, shot pretty well. And Duke kind of falls into that same category, Kevin, in that, you know, they're kind of known for their three-point shooting.
Yeah, and that would be a potential road game if they play San Diego State and Anaheim. You know, they're going to have a bunch of crazy fans up there if they meet down the road. I think another team, too, is Pittsburgh. Even though they won the Big East regular season championship, a difficult division, they really have not impressed me in terms of winning really big games when it counts throughout his career, and Jamie Dixon has come up short. I don't think this is the year this year for Pittsburgh to do it either.
Larry, what do you think about the #1 seed that won't make it to Houston?
I'm with Kevin. I got to go with Pittsburgh. You look at their history in the tournament, it hasn't been very good. Then they go to the Big East tournament and one of 27 teams in that event and lose in the first round. You just can't count on them. You look at them physically and say, yeah, man, they've got players and they're a really good team, but I'm not sure they get out of the first weekend, let alone the whole regional. So that would be my team least likely to advance.
Mark, you know, it's funny because this is supposed to be the most wide-open NCAA tournament ever, so you would think that the 4 #1s are in jeopardy of not making it.
No, a process of elimination. 2 of them are almost shoot in, I think, to Houston, even though I think Ohio State has a tough draw.
Yeah.
But I've got Kansas and Ohio State. Now, who else meets them there, I think, is a big question mark. Pittsburgh, I'm going to agree, too. They've gotten a break because they're in the weakest region. Even Billy Donovan says, hey, Florida might be the softest, too. So they are in the best region, but I'm going to agree with Larry. I don't have them getting out of the first weekend. They're going to get an ODU team, I think, if they can get through Butler. But Old Dominion has major school size in terms of their front court, playing in a mid-major conference. I think Old Dominion will give them big-time problems.
And they're close to home. Old Dominion's in Norfolk. They're playing in Washington, D.C. They'll have a home court advantage as a 9 against a 1. I love that upset.
Let me ask you this, Kevin. We just witnessed what happens when Kentucky goes to the SEC tournament, turns it to Catlanta.
Yeah.
There were about 9 Gator fans there and about 7 Alabama fans and 2 division champs. What do you think it's going to be like in Tampa, where obviously Kentucky fans are going to want to go, Florida fans, obviously, you know, this is Florida. Do you think it's going to be that kind of an overwhelming Kentucky crowd?
Oh, I think so, definitely, and I think they'll bring the crazies down, and certainly it sets up, if they get past that first round game against Princeton, which isn't a gimme, which isn't an easy game, a potential matchup with West Virginia, a team that beat them in the Elite Eight last year, another historical matchup from last year, so that could set up an interesting kind of revenge grudge game, and I'm sure the fans will be going nuts.
But West Virginia is not going to play Kentucky. Just remember, you heard it here.
There you go.
Oh, wow.
Well,
Tampa, huh?
Let me ask you this question, Larry. Do Cat fans stay around and cheer for the Gators, or do they boo them?
Historically, they do. Historically, SEC fans become very closely knit come tournament time. I'll never forget '94, Florida-Arkansas, and Florida fans and Arkansas fans in the Final Four were screaming for each other, standing for each other, chanting SEC and the whole bit. It's a fascinating thing about this conference. You never see UCLA in a regional final and they're chanting Pac-10, Pac-10. Never happens. It happens in the ACC once in a while, but basically that's a unique SEC thing where it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to hate you in a week, and I hated you last week, but for now, you're my buddy.
It happens in the ACC except for Duke, Carolina. Yes. They're not going that far.
No. And I'm wondering if Florida-Kentucky is a little bit the same thing, though, the rivalry, the history over the years with Matt Walsh and Joakim Noah. Will that override it, or will the conference, loyalty override that?
I think Kentucky fans at the end of the day will root for Florida, but
Billy's still one of theirs. You know, I mean, he did come through there.
Sort of.
No, sort of.
Sort of rejected them, too.
Yeah, he did. He pinned them on the backboard a couple times. That's going to do it for our second topic. Make sure you click on to the next one. We have topics 3 and 4 coming up here on our journey to the tourney.